something a little different today. I'm going to show you guys a day in the life of a mobile automotive mechanic. TRS Mobile Services, that's what I do. So we're on our way right now. We had a call. The vehicle is a no start, intermittent no start. Sometimes starts, stalls. I went there the other day, checked it out. I ended up having to look at it twice because the first time looked at it, the car was starting, so it was kind of tough to figure out. But I worked on a lot of Chryslers. I worked for Dodge Jeep for a little while at a dealer, so I kind of know the cars. And it's been a while since I've worked on a few of them for some weird issues, but they have common problems with no starts. It's almost like a crank no start or a crank start stall. And this customer originally stated that it wasn't starting, and it was weird because I didn't have a crank signal, so I put a crank sensor in it. It fired right up. Car ran great, no issues. Started it 100 times. The customer calls me back up a few days later and said it did it again. So I'm like, okay, well, let's try to figure this out now. So I went there and actually figured out that there is a component on the Chryslers, and it's pretty much a lot of the same vehicles have it. It's called a TIPM, and it's a totally integrated power module, which is your fuse box in the engine bay. The fuel pump relay circuit is part of the circuit board, so it's not a replaceable relay. And what happens is the circuit board goes bad. You have to put an external fuel pump relay and wire it in. Chrysler sells a kit, or you can just make up your own, which I did. I made up my own. I'm going back there now. It's currently, I think it's like 8:30 in the morning. It's Wednesday morning. And we're just going to wire in external fuel pump relay, which will eliminate that circuit inside the TIPM, which repairs the problem. Because once the car fires up and runs, it runs fine. And that's the part that's weird. Like, everybody always misdiagnoses it as either, like I did, crank sensor or fuel pump, because you'll lose signal to the fuel pump. And the only reason I went and did a crank sensor is because I had a crank cam sync fail. And when it started, I would see that it was working, so it was real weird. So it may have had two problems, I don't know. So I put a crank sensor in it. But either way, I figured it out yesterday that it was a common TIPM, loss of signal through the fuel pump relay. So that's where I'm going now. I made up my own harness with a relay, and I'll show you that when we get there. And I'll show you a little bit of the repair and what we have to do. So hang tight. All right, so we are at the job. I'm trying to be quiet because everyone's probably still sleeping around here. The actual customer was still technically sleeping. What we have here is, this is your TIPM. I'm not really sure what the writing on here from July 31st of 2013 BTB. I don't know what that is. Somebody wrote that. Doesn't matter. This is your totally integrated power module. First thing we have to do is remove it from its clips, which are these little clips here, all four corners. They're real simple little tabs. We have to disconnect main battery, negative side, and then we're going to disconnect the battery feed to the TIPM, because we're going to actually use that as our battery feed for our new relay. So the fuel pump fuse, I believe, is either this one or that one. I can't remember, but either way, it's going to get eliminated because that circuit is internal now. So we're going to eliminate all that. What I did was I created my own setup. So all it is just a simple 30 amp relay. Made my own harness based off of how Chrysler offers the kit, and has its own new fuse, which will hook in, and that'll power everything up. And it's just basically a 4-wire setup. So we're going to be tapping into 3 of the wires underneath the TIPM, once we get that all situated. So let's rock and roll. Okay, so we have the TIPM apart, and I'm going to explain a little bit. So basically, you have a few different connectors on the backside. You have your brown, which I believe is a 40 pin. Then you have your black, which I think they call it a 50 pin or 50 way. There's a brown wire in here, and there's two other wires in here that we have to tap into. Okay, so just to explain, you have two different connectors on the back side. You have a 40 pin or 40 way or whatever they want to consider it, brown. There's going to be two wires that we tap in here, and then you have your black 50 pin, which is also on the back. You have the 50 pin here, and this was the 40 brown. So on the black connector, we tapped into the brown wire, which is at pin 40. They tell you to cut off a little bit and heat shrink with a sealant type shrink, which I did. And then I tapped into my brown wire feed to my my relay setup. So then on the back side of the brown connector, you take your cover off, and there's two different style connectors you have to do here. There is a pink with green trace, which you actually have to tee into. So you do not eliminate it, you just tee into it with I used purple. I did not have pink wire, so I just used the purple for the relay. And then you have the fuel pump feed, which actually sends the power to the fuel pump, is your blue with orange tracer, which is this wire here that we tapped into. It's hard to tell the colors because it's older wires. And that goes to our blue wire on our relay that I made up. So then basically we put all of our connectors back on. We tape all this up nice. I have factory style harness tape, which will look identical to this. It's like a cloth. And then the last hookup would be your positive power feed, which has the 25 amp fuse in it, and that feeds the relay. And all you do there is you tap into the top of the TIPM, and that is now an external fuel pump relay. Okay, so we have everything back together here. I'll show you. I just have to modify the cover. It has a tab that covers the power side, but unfortunately with the new feed here, you have to just modify. Some of the kits come with a new cover, but that was for the recall. This car technically doesn't fall under a recall because it's a Town and Country, even though it is exactly the same problem. So as you can see, all the wiring's nice and hidden. You have the new relay. I put them right here so it's more accessible. Some people, and I believe they tell you to put them on the inside over here, which is fine too. I just happen to put mine here. Harness is nice and neat, tucked in there. So now you have access to that's your new fuel pump relay fuse, which is inside there. So the fuse in here is no longer used, which I believe it's that one right there, but I got to look it up. It doesn't matter either way. It's eliminated. So once everything's back in, cover it up. And the vehicle should start, which it does. So basically that's it. So this is part of the mobile mechanic or mobile technician, however you want to call it. So this is a day in the life of TRS Mobile Services. Make sure you check out our website too, because I got some merchandise up on there. It's tagsrodshop.com. If you want to buy nice little beanies, I got t-shirts coming, more on the way, different designs. So appreciate everybody watching. Enjoy.